News 40 years later.
Nearly 40 years ago, the AIDS epidemic broke out. At the time, little was known about the HIV virus. It was often thought of as a death sentence. Well, we have come a long way since then. In tonight's part 2 of my 5-part series leading up to the Steve Chase Humanitarian Awards, we'll look at those not just living, but thriving with HIV and AIDS.
Good morning, this is John Paul.
John Paul Valdez has a long list of accomplishments.
I can look that up right now.
He's a successful realtor in Palm Springs. He has an MBA, experience as a financial advisor, and much more.
I was recruited by Lancôme to work in Paris.
But to understand why he's so motivated, we need to go back to 1993.
At first, I thought I was losing weight, but when I got down to 98 pounds, it was life-threatening. I actually collapsed in the airport in Rome and was told I had 17 months to live.
Valdez was diagnosed with AIDS.
It started with just one lesion. Later, I had 77 lesions. I kept wearing jackets or clothing that would not make me, that would take away from how thin I was. See how my face is a little caved in there?
Doctors tried everything, even chemotherapy. But because no one knew exactly how to treat his symptoms, Valdez's outcome looked grim.
And I started inviting my family to say goodbye and so on. It was very, very, very difficult emotionally to confront one's own mortality. It was very frightening, as I say. I really had no idea how the future would unfold at the time, but I saw many friends die.
But doctors have learned so much since then. They now understand what the virus is, and the medications are much better.
If you take your HIV meds regularly, you will not be able to transmit the infection to your negative partner if your HIV viral load is less than 200, which is the undetectable level. They end up living as long as anybody who doesn't have HIV, and they actually get diseases of old age like heart disease, lung disease.
And because it's no longer a death sentence, people like Nicholas Snow have a very different experience.
I take 1 pill a day. I became HIV positive in 2007 because I had a rare slip in my safer sex behavior, which was just part of being human.
But with medication and Desert AIDS Project, both Snow and Valdez are living a healthy life.
One of the main reasons I moved here to the desert was because of DAP.
Snow even lives on the Desert AIDS Project campus in affordable housing.
I've benefited from the food bank, from mental health counseling, from support groups.
Snow hopes people will realize living with HIV or AIDS today is not what it used to be.
And one of the important statements that gets said in those are you clean? Well, I'm very clean. I just took a shower and I shampooed, I shaved, I've brushed and flossed my teeth.
As for Valdez, he's learned to live life to the fullest.
And even if you live to be 104, it's a terribly short period of time, so you would want to be taking advantage of every single moment that you have.
Now, AIDS was first reported back in 1981, but it wasn't until 1987, 6 years later, that the FDA approved the first drug to treat AIDS. It was new and there were many side effects. While there's still no cure, there are dozens of medications to manage it and live a healthy, successful life. Now, Wednesday night at 5, we'll get a more in-depth history of HIV/AIDS. You'll hear from one of the first journalists reporting on the front lines of the AIDS epidemic. Now, of course, this is all part of a 5-part series leading up to the Desert AIDS Project's 25th annual Steve Chase Humanitarian Awards this weekend.